You can go ahead, Samir.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Wasl Talks webinar conducted by Wasl Toastmasters Club. Today, our speaker is Mr. Amaan Ibrahim. Amaan Iqbal Ibrahim is a 23-year-old alumni and a former head boy of the class of 2019 at our English High School, Sharjah Boys Branch. An avid public speaker, he has delivered 6 TEDx talks and spearheaded his university's first TEDx event at the University of Birmingham, Dubai, where he is obtaining his BSc in psychology, maintaining a 4 GPA. He's the first Asian recipient of the International Diana Legacy Award for Social Work, the first non-Arab recipient of Sharjah Government Award for Volunteer Work, and the second Indian recipient of the Sheikh Hamdan Distinguished Family Award. An ardent advocate for mental health awareness, he is a published author and founder of Under 25 Project Hope, a pan-Indian student mental health program, a certified MHFA and ACT practitioner, and has interned with the likes of Sage Clinics, Ascent Wellbeing, Medio Hospital, Mediclinic, and Snapchat. He is also an ambassador for the British Psychological Society, North Mental Health, and his university. He was part of Janus, a sustainable startup initiative which emerged among the top 6 startups in the Middle East at the HULT International Business Prize 2023. He is currently working as an academic instructor at Edge Learning Center, Hong Kong. Amaan believes age should never be the limiting factor when it comes to changing the world. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and help me welcome Amaan Ibrahim. Amaan, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, TM Samir. Hi, everyone. My name is Amaan, as he so eloquently introduced me. Thank you once again for that. Now, am I permitted to just share my screen? Because I have a short presentation as well, which I could use.
Yes, please.
All right. Thank you. Give me 1 second. Right. Is it visible?
Yes.
All right. Perfect. So hi, everyone. Again, it's nice to be here. It's an honor to be able to speak at a Toastmasters Club event. Before anything else, I just want to say that across the next few minutes, intend to speak about my favorite subject, which just so happens to be myself. I have been quite straightforward about the fact that I like talking about myself, and so my friends have gotten desensitized at this point. I actually started my last TEDx talk saying there's 3 things you need to know about me. Number 1 is I'm narcissistic, and number 2 and 3 don't really matter because it's not about me. It's of course it's jokes, but at the same time, I believe that if at all there's a part of your story that you can use to help in creating a lesson for people, it's your solemn duty to be able to speak about that. Now, with that said, I want to speak about the choice value hypothesis here. And before I start, I have one quick question to ask everyone whose cameras are on. I want to ask you all to raise your hand, not on the Zoom app, but with it, absolutely. And now I want you to raise your hand a bit more. Okay. And now I want you to ask yourself, why didn't you give your 100% the first time I asked you all to raise your hands? So this is exactly what I'm trying to talk about, the choices that we make. They may be subconscious, they may be conscious, but at the end of the day, no choice at all can ever be dismissed as something that is too small or too big. Think of it this way. From the dawn of civilization, every single atom in the universe had to behave in a certain way for us to be sitting here at the Toastmasters Club for Al Wasl and having this session right now. If a single atom was in a different position, this wouldn't be happening. So every choice made by every being has penultimate consequences, has paramount importance at the end of the day. Now, this choice, we are often, provided the options to make choices throughout our lives. And I want to take you through my life and talk to you about some choices that I was able to make, some choices that were made for me, and how I was able to find the distance between the two. Right? So Before I say anything, I just want to show you a quick slide. These are all actively organizations that I'm working at right now. Right now, I know this seems like completely disconnected to what I'm trying to say, but this will make sense towards the end of the speech. I've been lucky enough. I've been blessed by God to give 6 TEDx talks. I'm up for a Guinness World Record for the highest number of TEDx talks given by an individual, and at the same time, I'm lucky enough to work at these 13 organizations at the same time. Now, all of this goes into one major message that I'm going to talk to you about towards the end of the speech. I want to take you all to a trip down memory lane. 2019. I've graduated from high school. I'm a fresh graduate, a senior, with big dreams and an even bigger hunger to achieve them. But all I knew at that point were the classic cliches. I want to make the world a better place. I want to help people, take care of them. But I didn't know the what, where, when, how, none of these things. And so being an Indian, being a South Indian, it seemed like there were only 2 logical options. The stereotype still holds true in most cases. I could either be an engineer or a doctor. And then after I get my degree, I could decide what I wanted to do. There's a saying, if there's any Malayalis in the crowd, there's a saying that Nevin Pauly is the only successful engineer in the world right now, because he's the only one making money at this point. So for me, the choice in that case was quite clear, because I hated math. I despised math. And I knew for a fact that the only way I was getting through math and scoring well in math up until year 10 was because I had a great skill, which was to learn things by heart. I, no joke, sat the 2 months before the board exams in year 10, and I memorized this big guide called R.D. Sharma, which is a math guide for students in CBSE curriculums. And I memorized the way each question was solved. That's the only way I scored high in math. And then I told my parents, no, there's no way I'm ever going to be taking math. So the choice in that case was quite clear, and it was made not by me, but it was the only choice at that point: medicine. So I wrote the NEET exam, and by God's grace, I was able to get in clears in my first attempt, and I joined a medical college in Kerala. 2019, I'm in there with big dreams of getting an MBBS, working and becoming a doctor, a well-renowned doctor in my family, and all that stuff. And then this little thug came in. Year 1 was great. Year 2 was even better, mainly because our dorm rooms didn't have ACs. And so year 2, we were attending classes from our homes where the ACs were active. So we were able to attend class without having to break a sweat. But at the same time, it tended to get a bit problematic, mainly because we used to have classes on surgery through Google Meet. So we'd be seeing our professors conduct surgery through Google Meet, and that's how we were supposed to learn. Which is why the meme started going around the place, where if you go to a doctor, ask which year they graduated from, because if you find out it's between 2020 to 2023, you might want to be careful. Now, that's not something I condone, but at the same time, that's just the meme that has been going around. Now, throughout COVID and everything, when I went there, so I spent 17 years of my life in school in Sharjah, living with my family. And of course, in the UAE, we're spoiled for choice. It's a luxury to be able to live here. And so for me, moving there meant a lot of things. Mainly, this move meant independence. Of course, I wasn't going to compromise on my academics, but at the same time, this meant I could decide when I wanted to sleep. I could decide when I wanted to eat, what I wanted to eat, who I wanted to go out and have fun with, when I could go for parties, how late I could stay up, all of these things. But then when COVID hit, that independence mutated into something else. That independence became isolation. And isolation is when it's forced independence on you. You really don't get to decide when or how you interact with others and when you get to be back with your family. So these same things that I loved ended up being things that I started to get, fed up of. Things that I just wanted to end so I could get back home to my family in Sharjah. And I was all the way in Kerala. There was nothing that could be done for about 9.5 months. I was stuck on my own. And so I did something that was quite unconventional at the time. I started taking on roles and internships for things that were not even remotely connected to my field. took up a marketing internship at a company called Under 25, which is based in Bangalore. And we would travel every 1 month to Bangalore for a weekend, and we'd work, and then I'd come back on Mondays, get back to class. Right. So it was quite odd where a medical student is doing a marketing internship. But a few good things came out of it. We were able to work with the PR teams of several great individuals, like for the likes of Deepika Padukone. And it was a great honor to us to be able to be involved in such initiatives like that. And then I joined an organization called Camp K-12, which was another funny story altogether. I saw a post saying that they wanted an English tutor, and said, "Okay, all right, let me sign up. My English is relatively good, so I think I might be able to get the job." During the interview, they start asking me questions related to coding, C++, JavaScript, and Python. And I did do IP informatics in year 11 and 12 in school, but that was barely enough to understand what they were asking me. Luckily, though, it was an online interview. So I was able to open up a split screen, copy paste the questions that they were asking, and luckily those questions were common enough to have the answers ready made. And so next thing you know, I'm getting paid to teach young kids coding. All right. And at the same time, technically, I'm being paid to learn coding. So at the end of the day, it kind of worked out well for me because now there's a new skill I could add on my LinkedIn. And at the same time, there's something that, I'm getting paid to do. And there were moments where during a class with a kid, I would change the slide and I myself would go, "Oh, okay, that's why. That's why we use this code here." Stuff like that. Along with that, I bought a ukulele. I saved up and I bought a ukulele. I started learning how to play the instrument. I got into music. I started composing my own songs, released a few originals, and then I got into poetry. Poetry was something that I was very much into even in my childhood. My dad's side of the family are very literally involved, where my grandfather was a poet and an author, along with being a professor. My dad was very much into the performing arts as well, and myself. And so luckily, I published my first book of poetry in 2021. All of this was well and good. And the only thought that was hitting me was, okay, the more and more I do all these things, marketing and teaching and stuff like that, the more I was enjoying these fields and the less I was enjoying studying medicine. And that realization came at the worst possible time because that's when in our cohort, in our class, and in our dorm, we found that a certain individual had taken their life. And this was severely impacting a lot of us because many of us knew this individual. And it was overnight. There are group chats that this individual was in with us, but we would never get another message from them. We would never be able to see them, speak to them, crack jokes with them. It just became a state where none of us really knew how to move on. And then the professors, of course, they sympathize, they feel bad for you for a while, and then they want you to move on because at the end of the day, you sitting and wallowing in pity will only affect your academics, and you're not helping the person who passed. So eventually we tried to move on, but not by forgetting our fallen brother, but by living despite his memory, knowing that he had so many miles to go before his actual rest, and so that we would live on behalf of him. We would live for him. And all of this together got a bit problematic for many of us because our mental health started taking a severe toll. Our students in the middle of classes, they would start breaking down, they would start having anxiety attacks. I myself had a panic attack or two once in a while, and it was scary. And so at that point, I decided to make my first independent choice. This 21 years into my life was when I made my first independent choice, where I got on a Zoom call with my parents. They're still in Dubai. I'm in Kerala. I'm calling them from my dorm room, and I give them the facts. I tell them, listen, there's something I need to tell you. Over the past 2 years, even though my academics have been stable, I have been doing all these internships and side jobs and quests and stuff like that. And I've been enjoying that even more. I now know exactly what I want to do in my life when I say I want to help people. For me, the field of psychology is something that my parents were very involved in. They are motivational speakers, they're organizational psychologists. So listening to them as a child, I would be 4 or 5 years old, but I would be walking around the room while they're talking about neurolinguistic programming, accelerated learning techniques, MBTI, and I would imbibe these things. And I started loving this field. And I told them, listen, this is what I want to do. And I didn't just make sure that I was just telling them, "Oh, I'm quitting and this is what I want to do, figure it out." No, I had a presentation made. I had a PowerPoint ready with slides talking about which universities I want to go into, what field I can get into, what specialization I want to do, how much money I would earn, where I wanted to settle down, my entire timeline for the next 10 years, everything down to the month was outlined in that presentation. Now, I did this entire thing with my parents fully in the understanding that they were going to say no. I mean, they've invested so much money, they have invested time, and of course, the age-old saying, "Log kya kahenge?" What will people say if they find out their son has dropped out of medical college, something that is a prestigious thing to be in, and they're choosing to change their field completely. But instead, for the very first time, they told me, let us handle the financial side. We see you really need this. Go ahead. You have our support. And that's when it struck me. For the first time in my life, 21 years, I was babied around. I had parents helicoptering around me. But the first time I made my own independent choice, I was given a seat at the table and I was treated like an equal. So that led to me, making the decision to come back to the UAE and joining the University of Birmingham, Dubai. Now, with that said, there are three things that I would like to say are the messages I would like to convey to everyone in the call. And if at all after this call you go home or you switch off the Zoom call and the person sitting in another room asks you, what did the speaker talk about? If you can say these three things, my job is done. Trust, tribe, and thy value. So I'll take you into each of them, right? Trust. Now, I took the field of psychology. I got into the field of clinical psychology. And now, okay, I just want to know, everyone in this call, you could just put a hands up emoji or something. Could you show a raise of hands if you think that me, the type of person that you see in front of you, would be somewhat popular in school and had a lot of friends and stuff like that? You can be brutally honest. All right, so as I can see, I had no friends in school. I was genuinely hated to a point where there were times where I would get home and open my bag and I'd find like a few chits telling me to go, hurt myself and stuff like that. So it's mainly because, when I was in school, I loved public speaking. I loved theater. I would act a lot for dramas that we used to organize once a year. I was into music, but my parents were good friends with the principal. Now, there was no single point in my life where my parents went to the principal and said, give him this opportunity, do this, do that. But at the same time, for anyone on the other side of it, they see a kid whose parents are friends with the principal, and that kid is speaking at competitions, going for dramas, music, getting awards and stuff like that. They add one and one together, and for them, this seems like the most logical explanation. That's the reason why I never held that against any of the people who I know. Because if I were in their position at that age, I would make the same conclusion. I would make the same conclusion that, oh, he's a nepo baby. He's gotten everything because of his parents' contacts. But at the same time, I was hated, and I would make sure that I was diligent in my schoolwork. If a task was given to me, I would do it within a few hours and get back to them and submit it and stuff like that. But instead of seeing it as a work ethic, my classmates and my peers saw it as me trying to be the teacher's pet. So they didn't trust me either, because they thought if he's given an opportunity to snitch on us, he will complain. Right. So that led to me being quite isolated. And for me, it was this thought that led me to go into university thinking, you know what, I don't really want to make friends now. I've already spent 3 years of my life having fun, studying and everything. Now I'm here to get a degree. I'm going to put my head down, study, and then leave. Right? So 3 years, let's get this done as fast as possible. But that's when tribe comes in. These people on the screen right now, they refused to let me go away with just putting my head down, studying, and leaving the university. These people claimed and would even shout at me if at all they noticed that there were moments where I was just withdrawing into my own shell. They would come in, make sure that I was a part of the conversation. They would make sure that I was having fun. When it was time for exams, we would all buck down and start studying. But at the same time, right after the exams, we'd be enjoying, having fun, partying around, all the stuff that we needed to do. So this is the second message that I want to bring up when it comes to the choices you make. Forming a tribe seems daunting, but if someone who got into university saying, no, I don't want a group of friends, ended up with a group of friends that I love more than anything in this world, then it's incredibly easy. And one main thing that I end up saying to a lot of incoming freshmen, university students, is that 9 times out of 10, the first group of friends you make is rarely your last group of friends. Most of the time, when you join university, your first friend group disbands within 5 months, right? Before your first academic year is done, you will move away from that friend group. And that's fine. If it doesn't happen, great. If it does happen, that's fine. People change. It's mainly because when we join university for the first time, psychologically, we have this bias to be socially desirable. So we might tend to do, say, or behave in certain ways that makes other people, in our mind, they like us. But the more and more you go in university, you get tired of this facade that you're putting up, and you start letting these walls come down and you show your real self. And so it's not that your real self is scary or something. It's just that the people that you were friends with initially, they were not friends with you. They were friends with the facade that you had put up. So the second friend group you make generally ends up being one of the most sincere groups that you have, because by then you've let down all your walls, you've become your authentic self. And then the people that meet you are the people who love you for you, not for what you want yourself to be. With that said, these friends saw my work ethic and they didn't say, oh, he's trying to be a teacher's pet. They they started accepting me for that, and they started, congratulating me on my work ethic. They would come up to me and say, like, anytime we're organizing an event or we're planning a meetup with friends in the weekend, they'll say, yeah, ask Amaan first. He might be having something. He might be having a meeting. He might be working. Even actually, now that I think about it, today, we were all supposed to meet at Unwind Board Game Cafe in Dubai at 8 p.m. And my friends messaged me asking when I would be free. And I said, no, I have a session at 7:30. So I wouldn't be able to come. You guys carry ahead. But then they moved it. So now I'm going tomorrow to meet up with them. So for them, they started appreciating the fact that I hold my work in a certain degree of importance. And then finally, thy values. The last T, the three T's: trust, tribe, and thy values. What do I mean by thy values? Well, so I'm a student of a GEM school, and this is something the founder of GEMS Education, Mr. Sunny Varki, had said. The most important gifts you can give your child are a quality education and the values that will guide them through life. And although it is significantly a part of our parents' role to help imbibe these values in us, at the same time, it is up to us to decide whether or not we want to imbibe these values. Even feels like therapy. We're told therapy doesn't work unless you want it to work. Nothing people try to put on you will ever work unless you yourself want it to work. So with that said, I've mentioned a lot of, qualitative stuff, but I myself like the numbers, the nitty-gritty data as such. So I found this questionnaire, right? So it's openly available. You can just Google valued living questionnaire. It's a series of 20 questions, all right? And you have to rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is that it is extremely important to you, and 1 is that it's not at all important to you. And then on the second set of questions, you have to say whether, based on your values, do you feel like this specific thing is extremely consistent with your values, or it's not at all consistent with your values. And I would suggest when you're doing this, you do this on your own, alone, and that way you won't be tempted to change the way you score things, thinking, oh, what if the person next to me sees something like that and they think, oh, he doesn't care about family or education. No, do it on your own. Be honest to yourself if you want to get the answers. So once you get these values understood, I will tell you one quick quote. My late grandfather, Dr. A.P. Ibrahim Kuti, was, in my complete honesty, one of the most insightful and inspiring individuals I've ever had the honor of meeting. The only regret I have is that I didn't get to spend as much time as I would have liked. That's one reason why I'm jealous of my dad, because my grandfather passed away when I was 10. And for me, it's 10 is not an age where you're fully developed enough to understand the wisdom being shared by such an insightful human being. He would say this one quote quite frequently, which is, in life, be like a compass, the geometric one. With one leg, stay rooted to your values, your convictions, and your beliefs. And with the other leg, move around. Help others, learn from others, and benefit from others, victimizing none, and leaving the world a bit better than it was when you first inherited it. And only then can you draw the perfect circle. And for me, every single element of my life, from the moment this quote hit my brain till the last moment where I release my last breath, is going to be to try and fulfill my duty, not just to this quote, but to that man. And that eventually when I meet him on the next plane, he comes to me and hugs me and tells me that he's proud of me. And if that happens, for me, it's fulfilled. My life has been completed. So with that said, I'm starting to get emotional, but okay. With that said, these three things, trust, tribe, and knowing thy value, I would say are the most important things to know when it comes to making choices that are important in life. And with that, what now? Well, now that you know who to trust, you know who your group is, and you know what your important values are, now you start working. Now you start doing things. And you do the Russell Brunson approach, where he said once, when you're given an opportunity, say yes, and then figure out how to do it, right? Opportunities aren't a dime a dozen right now, especially in a world where AI is taking up so many roles. Most of these jobs, I used to work as a content writer, and I lost my job as a content writer. Even though I pride myself on my work quality, I lost it because they said, we could actually just buy a subscription to ChatGPT Plus, and we could save so much on an annual basis. And so my position was made redundant. So don't get complacent in a specific position that you have. It could be an internship. It could be a full-time job. It could even be in university, right? So start working. Now I take you back to this. That is why I told you at the start, I'm working at these companies. I've given 6 TEDx talks, and I've organized 4. I'm organizing a next one in the upcoming year in March. Because for me, I will never have enough of an opportunity. If I'm given an opportunity, I'm going to work to make sure that when I leave that opportunity, they remember my name. And that when new interns and new people come in, they say, okay, listen, there was this one guy who trusts me. If you guys can do what he was doing, you guys are going to go well. If that's the case, that's the legacy that I'm able to leave behind. I'm perfectly happy with my life. So at Sage, I'm a clinical psychology intern, and I'm going to soon be moving into that. University of Birmingham, Dubai, I'm a student representative. I'm a student ambassador. I'm part of the student recruitment team. The Health Prize, I'm a campus director. Neo Health, I'm a mental health ambassador. NUMU, I'm the communications lead. The Edge, I teach IBHL physics, chemistry, psychology, and public speaking. Nephrology, I was a psychology intern. Meteor, psychology observer. Kamali Clinic, again, a psychology intern. Snapchat, I was an opinion leader and a well-being intern. Lincoln University of Business Management, I was the host of a podcast series that they organize. Ascend Wellbeing, it's a startup where I've become the director of clinical operations and recruitment. And ISEC in the UAE is an international youth development organization where I'm the national director for organizational development. And along with all that, these 6 TEDx talks, as I'd said, I'm in line to get a Guinness World Record for the highest number of TEDx talks given. But at the same time, I'd said at the end of my last speech, my last TEDx talk, that was my last TEDx talk. I don't intend to give out any more, because there comes a point when you realize you have sold your brand. You have a personal brand, which are your values. Once you know what your values are, make that a part of you, regardless of what you're doing. So every TEDx talk that I've given, I implement a certain element of mental health. I implement a certain element of social diversity and social harmony and the need for that. And even in my jobs, I ensure that there's mental health involved in it. So at the end of the day, do it to a point where eventually your name and that value is synonymous. Keep going and keep doing it. By no means do I think that I'm anywhere close to the goal I have. There was a French poet, his name is Francois Rabelais, and he used to say, his last word was, I go to seek a great perhaps. And for me, my great perhaps, I find the beauty of it being something that I can't attain, where every time I get closer to it, the goal increases by one. And I think the beauty of that is that I can keep going my entire life and I won't achieve it. And that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with loving the pursuit of something more than receiving that certain goal. And for me, that's why I do what I do. And that's why I would implore you all to start finding your values and understanding exactly what makes you, you, and then help others from how you are your own person. That led to a lot of opportune events where, by the grace of God, I was, as TM Samir said, I was the first Asian recipient of the International Diana Legacy Award, which I was honorably able to receive from Prince Harry and Prince William. Although at this point, arguably, the award is not as valuable as the picture because you can't find the two of them together in a picture anymore. So this picture is worth a lot more now. I'm glad. Um, Along with that, I was also the first non-Arab recipient of the Sharjah government's award for volunteer work, which I received from the nephew of His Excellency Dr. Sheikh Sultan Al Qasimi. And that led to me getting 2 representative awards, being a 6-time TEDx speaker, having a series of 4 internships in a year, which is a record in my university, and being the national head for organizational development at ISEC in the UAE. Now, with all that said, the big why do you need to understand these values? Why do you need to make it a part of your life? Well, I would end with one quick story. This is something that my dad told me when I was a kid. Once upon a time in a forest far, far away, there was a huge fire that broke out. All the animals rushed to a center where the fire hadn't reached yet, and they started panicking, not knowing what to do. Even the lions, the giraffes, the hippos, the rhinoceroses, all that. But in the midst of all that, they looked to the side and saw this little frog jumping to a lake nearby, taking a bit of water in its mouth, jumping towards the fire and spitting that water out of the fire. And it kept doing this again and again and again. And then the animals started laughing, almost as if they forgot that there was a fire around them. And they said, "What, this isn't going to help in any way." And the frog responded by saying, "I know, but one day I will have to meet my maker. And that day he won't ask me, 'Little frog, did you put out the fire?' No, my maker will ask me, 'Little frog, what did you do in your part to try and set out that fire?'" So at the end of the day, that's why, again, like I said, you might not attain your goal in your entire lifetime. But at the same time, when you breathe your last breath, you should be able to pass into the next plane, safe in the knowledge that you did everything you could to live, love, and let live, and pass everything on. With that said, I would end by asking you the same question I asked at the start. If I can ask you all to raise your hands, and if I can just see if my speech has taken effect. Perfect. Thank you for making the best choice you could. Thank you for having me. It's indeed an honor.
All right. Can I now request everyone to give a round of applause for the speaker?